I'm far-right and low-key kinda racist, and I'm not happy about it. It's all somewhat implied in the title. I identify as right-wing, what many would label as far-right, and I admit to being slightly racist, which I am not particularly proud of. I have been aligned with far-right ideology for nearly 5 years now, and one of the principal factors that influenced my shift was observing the Black Lives Matter protests and riots, as well as various videos about them during the 2020 lockdown. For your information, I am currently 17 to 18 years old, and during the lockdown, I was around 12 to 13. I am unsure if sharing this part risks revealing too much personal information, but I believe I have been vague enough, and my age is relevant to this reflection. Looking back on 2020, this was likely the most pivotal year for me politically and in many other aspects as well. Essentially, seeing footage of Black Lives Matter activists rioting in America, defacing statues in the United Kingdom, stores being set ablaze, and particularly one video that depicted several white individuals kneeling before a few African American individuals as a form of atonement for slavery completely alienated me. Additionally, the rioting incidents were morally questionable, which further distanced me from left-wing movements. Concurrently, many of the individuals I found appealing online were opposed to Black Lives Matter. In fact, I remember one person in particular, Gypsy Crusader, whom I frequently watched during that period. There were also other YouTubers who discussed the Black Lives Matter movement, some of whom I had followed before the lockdown, but I would prefer not to mention any names as I cannot recall who they were at the moment. I should also clarify that they were not political YouTubers, though they occasionally touched upon such topics. My real-life experiences also contributed to my right-wing inclination. I have never faced bullying. In fact, I am quite sociable and have a relatively large social circle. However, during the early years of secondary school, there were several instances where classmates made disrespectful remarks about white individuals. For instance, I recall when I was 12, prior to the lockdown, a peer in my class casually stated, "I will never respect white people," while talking with friends. He then glanced at me and added, "No offense, my name," laughing with his companions. Admittedly, this might reflect my sensitivity, but for a time, it caused me to distrust non-white individuals. Other non-political aspects also fueled my radicalization. For example, the drill music scene and roadman culture are largely represented by non-white individuals, and I have noticed that this has intensified my right-wing beliefs and fostered some racial prejudices. Particularly at a time when my country is grappling with crime issues, I observe that the culture and scene that openly celebrate and glorify crime are primarily dominated by non-white individuals, who are also a minority in my nation. Furthermore, mass immigration has significantly influenced my views, giving me the impression that my ethnicity is being supplanted in our own land. I have also witnessed a noticeable decline in the percentage of white residents in my local area over the past few years. It was never predominantly white to begin with, but now, my family comprises one of only about 3 white families on my street, which is home to approximately 40 families. Returning to the main narrative, 2021 was another influential year for me. It is when I encountered Christ, and when the My Little Dark Age and After Dark edits gained immense popularity. It may sound trivial, but these had a significant impact on me, especially the Embrace Masculinity, Reject Modernity, and Ziz edits, along with the previously mentioned My Little Dark Age edits centered on the Crusades or ancient European empires. This was also the year I began my journey of self-improvement and started following figures like Hamza Ahmed on YouTube. Although not explicitly political, his content aligns much more with right-wing ideologies than left-wing. In fact, the left's lack of emphasis on physical fitness compared to the right has somewhat repulsed me. Nonetheless, these 2021 edits, along with my self-improvement efforts and spiritual awakening, led me to explore the traditionalist Catholic segment of the internet. In 2022, I joined a few Christian or sedevacantist Discord servers. For those who understand what sedevacantism is, I no longer consider myself one, as I believe it is schismatic, which significantly shaped my traditionalist beliefs. In 2022, I also delved deeply into conspiracy theories, and that entire corner of the internet, which also wielded a considerable influence over me. My engagement with these topics was on pause from late 2023 until May due to exams, during which I became quite knowledgeable about conspiracies. In September 2023, I joined a large Discord server focused on schizo posting, participating actively until May 2024, particularly during March and April. It was a fascinating experience. The participants were all relaxed, and it was gratifying to connect with like-minded individuals from America and other regions. Most were slightly older than me, averaging around 21 to 22 years of age. The oldest member I recall was 24, and for a while, I was the youngest in the group. While these individuals were generally easygoing, many held overtly racist views, which I personally found off-putting. Gradually, I began to understand their perspectives more, although I could not completely agree. While I support the idea of large-scale deportations, I strongly oppose any illegal or violent actions. I deemed that behavior immoral, and witnessing a few individuals from these conversations promoting violent actions was immensely disheartening and prompted me to step back. I stopped using the server in May since I became occupied with reading Jujutsu Kaisen during my usual server hours. Soon after, a server I had entered through a connection on the conspiracy theory server was shut down for promoting violent extremism, triggering my account into a highly restricted mode. This led me to panic and leave both the conspiracy theory server and the backup server for fear of being banned and losing my only means to contact an old friend. I was somewhat justified in my fears because in early June 2024, that server was indeed removed for violent extremism, and the forum also experienced a raid, resulting in the removal of several top posts within a mere 5 days, which I suspect was a coordinated effort by trolls. Furthermore, at that time, I started encountering the Save Europe themed content and began listening to various Save Europe songs like Elammer Tauger's Auslander Rouse versions or IH3 Art You by Boy Fantasy, whether in slowed down or sped up formats, as well as Malo Tebela hardstyle. That brings us to the present. To be honest, I have had to omit a lot due to the late hour and my need for sleep. So if anything is unclear or if you would like further details or clarification, please feel free to ask, and I will do my best to respond. My political beliefs seem logical and valid to me, obviously, but I find that I am more judgmental than I would prefer, and I possess some racist tendencies that trouble me. Additionally, I now know several peers with similar views at school, which was not the case before, so interpret that as you wish. I apologize if this comes across as chaotic and poorly articulated. I simply needed to express this for several weeks. Story 2. BF told ChatGPT he's no longer attracted to me because I gained pregnancy weight. I am literally shaking and crying in bed next to my partner as I write this. There is a lot of context here, but I will give you the essentials. My significant other is 34 years old, and I am 24 years old. He has a 9-year-old daughter from a previous marriage, and we have a 9-month-old baby together. I became pregnant 3 months into our relationship. Almost immediately after we found out I was expecting, intimacy ceased completely. Now that our son is 9 months old, we have had sex maybe twice since his birth. I did gain some weight during my pregnancy, but it has been extremely challenging for me to try to lose weight since I am exclusively breastfeeding and can't just stop eating. However, I have been attempting to exercise and eat healthier. In addition to being a full-time stay-at-home mother to our son, I am also fully engaged with his daughter when she is present. I take her to and from school, prepare meals, and play with her, among other things. I have had difficulty adjusting to all of this. Obviously, I went from living independently, working in a management position, enjoying financial stability, and leisurely spending my days as a typical 22-year-old to living in a large 3-bedroom house, sharing a child with a man I barely know, and essentially taking on the majority of the parenting responsibilities for a child that is not mine, which have been placed fully on my shoulders. He was laid off from his job that paid enough to support us a few months ago and has since taken a job that pays literally half of what he was earning before. To say we are facing financial difficulties is an understatement. I would not be able to go back to work right now even if I wanted to. Recently, I have lost around 15 pounds and have felt genuinely good about myself for the first time in a long while. He has started to give me compliments again. However, I have had a strange feeling that something is not right for a while. He has been attributing our lack of intimacy to stress from the pregnancy and fluctuations in his testosterone levels. I have made several attempts to initiate intimacy over the past almost 10 months, but he has shut me down every time. As I mentioned, I believe we have had sex twice in the entirety of our son's life. Last week, I noticed he had blue juice, a form of liquid Viagra, on his desk and asked him what it was because I truly had no idea. He told me it was Viagra and that he obtained it so we could start being intimate again. The idea of him wanting to be intimate with me again uplifted my spirits because it has been such a long time. I have cried and begged him so many times to let me know if he is no longer attracted to me, and he insists that he is. The day before I noticed the blue juice, I saw a girl's name, which I had seen before, pop up on his phone from Snapchat. This girl frequently sends him messages, and I even saw him try to conceal his phone at one point when she reached out to him. I had inquired about this girl, and he claimed she was some girl he had known from a past job. I felt a sense of unease, but tried to set it aside and think positively about him. I have only accessed his phone one time throughout our entire relationship and have chosen, for my own mental well-being, not to do it again. I used to check my ex's phone obsessively because he was constantly being unfaithful. But I chose to place my complete trust in this man because he has stated numerous times that he has never given me a reason to check his phone and that he would never engage in such behavior. I genuinely feel guilty about going through someone else's phone, and I consider it a violation of privacy, although I believe if you suspect something is amiss, it can be justified. Perhaps it was wrong of me, but tonight, while he was asleep after putting our son to bed, I felt compelled to search for something. I opened his Snapchat app and looked for the girl's name in his chat log, but I didn't see it. So, I entered her name in the search bar, and it brought up a conversation he had sent her that she had opened. When I clicked away from her name and returned to the log, it glitched momentarily and showed that they had been chatting within the last few days. I then noticed that she had a symbol next to her name indicating that her notifications were muted. This suggests that the day I saw her name pop up and inquired about it, he may have become concerned and muted her so I wouldn't see her messages anymore. Very suspicious. Then I noticed he had ChatGPT open. I genuinely did not believe I would find anything, but coming from someone who has been betrayed and has found proof of cheating through multiple apps, I thought I would scroll through and be safe, not really expecting to discover anything. I found a conversation labeled something like, "Feeling unattracted to your partner," and my heart sank. I realized that my feelings were valid. He was indeed unattracted to me, and that this was the reason for the state of our relationship. He had sent a lengthy message that essentially summarized the same information I shared with you about our life, except in his version, I do nothing but sit on my phone and computer all day. He even claimed that I had promised to shed the baby weight throughout our son's entire 7-month life, and that I had made no progress, leading him to feel entirely unattracted to me. Furthermore, he stated that his lack of attraction to me was behind much of his resentment and anger towards me. I am utterly heartbroken. I have never felt so unattractive in my life, but I was finding comfort in the belief that my partner still found me beautiful after having our son. I have worked diligently to manage this large house, transitioning from taking care of just myself to looking after an entire family while trying to adapt to these drastic life changes. Since we became a couple, my entire family, mother, both sisters, and my father have relocated back to our home state. I am completely alone and managing everything on my own with my baby. I have communicated to him countless times about the stress I am experiencing. I am so depressed that I can hardly get out of bed. I have no one but him. I have no friends, no life, no money, and I do not even have my own car now because he allowed his vehicle to be repossessed and is driving my paid-off car while neglecting it and leaving me stranded at home. This was my car before we even started dating, by the way. Despite all of this, I have made every effort to be a good partner and bonus mother to his child, as well as learning to be a parent to my own. I believed I was doing well and that he was content and proud of me, only to discover that I am perceived as fat, unattractive, and unworthy of respect in our relationship because of that. I do not want any comments about how I should not have gone through his phone. It is too late for that now. Perhaps I should have let it go unseen, but I did not, and now I possess knowledge I was not meant to have. I feel sick, sad, and terrified. I want to take my baby and be with my family, but I feel trapped here with a man who does not even like me. Edit to add, I know someone is going to ask, so here it is. I am 5 feet 8 inches tall and went from approximately 160 pounds to 205 pounds during my pregnancy. I did gain quite a bit of weight, but I would not consider myself to be very overweight in appearance. I definitely look a little thicker than before, but it was not an exceedingly drastic weight gain in terms of pregnancy. I have lost about 15 pounds. Story 3. I, 18F, need advice on how to confront my friend group for icing me out, all 18F as well. Hello everyone. I, 18 female, am seeking some guidance on a situation I have recently encountered with my friend group. This will likely be a bit chaotic and scattered as I attempt to provide context regarding events that I believe may clarify why I have been excluded, so it might not all be coherent. If anyone has any questions or requires clarification, I am more than willing to elaborate in the comments. My main friend group consists of about 6 core girls, and most of us have been friends since middle school. However, I have been indirectly excluded from this group, and I am unsure why. To begin, it all somewhat started around June 2024 when my friends and I graduated high school. We are currently all in university or college. There was an issue with one of the girls in the group, whom I will refer to as S, who was my best friend for several years at the time. She had a problem when she confessed her feelings to a guy she liked. I am mutual friends with him and introduced them in 2023, but he did not fully reciprocate her feelings. I will call him B. To clarify, I have never been romantically interested in B and only viewed him as a friend, and he felt the same way. The other girls in my friend group, however, were not fond of him as they found him somewhat rude or weird. Regardless, my friend confessed and ended up crying on prom night, and we had to comfort her throughout the night. I was literally up until 3:30 a.m. comforting her, until she went to bed. The following day, S was still upset but managed to talk to B, where they resolved things, I think. However, when we all tried to check in on her to see how she was doing and ensure she was taking care of herself, she tends to neglect eating, drinking water, and self-care when she is upset. She became angry with all of us and publicly criticized us on her Instagram story, only to apologize about 3 hours later and laugh it off. Unfortunately, she has never been the most emotionally mature person, and incidents like this are common with her. Nevertheless, I believed that everything was fine and we had moved on. I will also mention that S informed us about her crush in April, as it began around that time, and B asked her to be his prom date a few weeks before this. Most people around her, including me, encouraged her to confess, thinking he liked her back, including BTK's best friend, who also believed he had a crush on S. I always advised her to confess if she wanted but not to overthink it, as I knew she would analyze every interaction they had, which she did. Most of us suggested she either get it over with at prom and stop prolonging it, or find time in the summer instead. So there is a possibility she has been, and perhaps still is, upset with me for encouraging her to confess and get it over with. After this, it was summer, and from June to August, I was quite busy working around 35 hours weekly, so I was not particularly concerned about what was occurring between S and B. I did attempt to maintain contact with S and even invited her to hang out, but she simply answered, "We'll see," and we did not end up communicating much, mostly just exchanging posts on Instagram. The main issue for me began around this point. Throughout the summer, despite my busy schedule, I would consistently reach out to the girls in my friend group to see if they wanted to hang out or talk on my days off. The problem arose when they either avoided the subject, changed the topic, or were somewhat vague about making plans, responding after several days, which made scheduling anything difficult. I managed to meet with one of the girls, J, who will become relevant later, once over the summer, along with another friend, M, and everything seemed normal when I was with them. We conversed as usual, and our texting frequency remained the same, yet they were still very hard to make plans with and indecisive about meeting up. Fast forward to late August, My friend Kay was hosting a going-away party before university started. As she was going to a school 5 hours away, the rest of us remained local. She initially sent a mass text in our shared friend group chat, where everyone confirmed they could attend, including me, except for our friend M, who had to visit her grandmother. She sent this message roughly 2 weeks prior to the party, and afterward, I had not heard back from her. I honestly assumed it was because she was busy organizing and would send additional details closer to the event, and my work schedule kept me preoccupied, so I did not think too much about it. However, 3 days before the party, I realized she hadn't provided any further details, such as dress code or specific meeting location, so I texted her to inquire. At that point, she informed me that some people in the friend group were not comfortable hanging out with me, and she essentially disinvited me. I asked her who felt uncomfortable, but she said she did not want to get involved, which I respected. Therefore, I ended up messaging everyone individually to inquire if there were any concerns and if we could discuss them if there were any issues. Out of the 6 girls, 5 of them replied that there were no problems, including S, but J mentioned she had some concerns regarding me. To be honest, I believe everything she expressed was absolute nonsense and really did not make much sense as to why she was uncomfortable with me. I even showed other friends from a different friend group who were close to J the messages, and they were just as confused as I was. Nonetheless, I respected her feelings, provided her with space, and did not attend the going-away party. The issue I am facing now is that following that party, I have essentially been excluded from the group. I genuinely do not understand why everyone has started to limit contact with me, especially after I reached out to everyone, asking if they had any issues and wanted to discuss them with me. However, since then, I have mostly been ignored. I have attempted to keep in touch with these friends over the months, but they either take a long time to respond, which was not like them previously, are very brief and vague in their messages, or have simply left me on read. I also know the other girls are still in contact, as I see them posting photos of their hangouts or messages they send to one another online, so I realize that I am essentially the only one who has been isolated. I suppose I am just seeking advice on what to do, or if I should even do anything at all. Part of me wants to confront them again because I am genuinely hurt and upset by this situation. I have known most of these girls for 4 or more years, and I am truly pained by what is happening. Another part of me is unsure if it is worth discussing, as it has been a few months, and their contact with me has gradually declined over time, so I do not know if it is worth bringing it up again to seek answers. I guess I am feeling somewhat restless and troubled by everything lately because I genuinely miss spending time with them, but it seems they do not share the same feelings, and I have no idea why they have slowly limited contact. Could I please receive advice on how to approach this situation with my old friends and express my concerns about what has transpired? Summary: I, 18 female, have been excluded from my friend group of 6, all 18 female, and do not understand why. I need advice on how to address this and communicate my feelings regarding the situation. Story 4. My, 19M, ex-BF 20M, was in a relationship when we started dating. A year ago, I, 19 male, met this individual 20 male online. We connected well and decided to begin dating. I often experience intrusive thoughts about others secretly disliking me, and he would sometimes vanish mid-conversation or not respond for several days. This led to me feeling upset on a few occasions, primarily sending him messages inquiring if I had done something wrong. He was unable to pay his rent and became homeless. Over the coming months, he disappeared for several days at a time, causing me to fear he might be in danger, so I would consistently text him to check if he was all right. In early June, he vanished for over a week, and I became so anxious that I attempted to find any information available to confirm he was okay. I discovered an account with the same username that was interacting inappropriately with random individuals. After examining it more closely, I realized it was merely someone who coincidentally chose the same username. Nevertheless, I preferred to be angry at him rather than consider the possibility that he might have been injured or deceased, so I sent him some furious messages expressing my heartbreak. He read them, I offered an apology, and he acknowledged my remorse, resulting in things returning to normal for a while. Then he disappeared for 2 months. When he finally returned in mid-October, I had essentially already mourned him, and I felt a mix of emotions, yet we attempted to stay together. He had secured housing, although he was still recovering from the effects of the hurricane. My intrusive thoughts worsened due to unrelated real-life issues, and I continued to feel anxious whenever he disappeared, but I tried to manage it. It was until I recognized that he was still going online and engaging with posts, effectively ghosting me. At that juncture, I began to feel anger toward him, believing he was doing it intentionally, and this continued until I ended the relationship. I informed him that I was finished with being ignored for weeks, and he did not respond to that either. After a few days, I attempted to communicate with him again and apologized, explaining that I truly could not handle being ghosted for days or weeks. We resolved our issues, everything seemed fine for a couple of days, and then he started ghosting me once more. I could no longer tolerate the situation, so I blocked him. On one hand, I understood that I was merely a burden for him, and I did not want him to have to manage me. On the other hand, I was exhausted from feeling like an afterthought. I had not yet unfollowed him on other social media platforms, and a few days later, when I logged on, I came across our chat and decided to look at his profile, noticing he had ceased being active. I became anxious that I might have hurt him far more than I originally believed, so I searched for any information about him, looking for posts elsewhere, and I stumbled upon his Reddit profile. He sought advice on this subreddit regarding making his relationship with his girlfriend of a year, 18 female, less sexual. From this post, I discovered that he was unfaithful to me or that I had been his affair partner. I confronted him, and he claimed that what he wrote was untrue, stating that they started dating a few weeks prior and he merely wanted long-term advice. They lived far apart, so they only exchanged pictures and did not have any physical relationship. He mentioned he spoke with her, and she was fine with him reconciling with me, and despite my conflicting emotions, I chose to get back together with him. In the weeks that followed, I oscillated between being cheerful and feeling extremely angry with him. I could not stop thinking about how he told me I was irreplaceable, which was evidently false. It distressed me how he continued to defend his friend, asserting that she was merely trying to aid him. Ultimately, we decided to part ways because I could not maintain a healthy, long-distance relationship with him. We continued to converse, and our discussions remained quite sexual, which I enjoyed initially since it made me feel important to him. However, as time progressed, I felt increasingly uncomfortable with it. I wanted to normalize our relationship and simply be friends, as I believed I was hindering him from dating others and that our current dynamic was inappropriate. I struggled to discuss him with anyone in real life, as genuinely everyone, friends, family, etc. I spoke with about him, except for one friend who isn't particularly good at keeping secrets, advised me not to date him due to the distance, and they all assumed I was no longer with him. Perhaps it was incredibly unwise of me, but I attempted to find that friend of his to ask her what I did wrong and how to de-escalate our interactions. I had inadvertently discovered her profile a few days prior, as when I searched for his username to send him some memes, Instagram displayed another profile that was clearly his, but that I had not encountered before. Out of curiosity, I explored it and noticed he was tagged in a video where she professes her love for him. I did not mention anything to him since we had already ended our relationship, and it no longer mattered. I reached out to her. Initially, she claimed he was unfaithful to her and requested proof. I sent her screenshots of some messages and pictures, and she spoke to him. He blocked me, and she indicated she did not believe he actually cheated on her because I only provided screenshots of some recent messages, and she subsequently blocked me as well. I have been attempting to reach out to him because I desire closure. I want to know what is genuinely accurate regarding what they told me. I am not as distressed as I was when I discovered the infidelity early in January, and I understand I was a poor partner, so I would be content if he is with someone nice. However, I do not wish for him to vanish without explaining why he began a relationship with me while he was engaged to someone else. What I am seeking to understand is how to move on from this in a healthy manner. Mentally, I am doing much better than I was a year ago. I no longer experience random panic attacks, and I do not overthink as much as I once did. Almost all my internal thoughts that remained were about him, and even those have significantly diminished over the last few months. Nonetheless, this still hurts, and I would greatly appreciate any advice on how to manage this situation. Thank you to anyone who took the time to read this far. I apologize for the lengthy post. Summarizing, I discovered that my ex, whom I admittedly always treated poorly, was engaged to someone when we started dating, and now they both blocked me. I'm uncertain who among them told me the truth, as their accounts differ.